Hello, welcome to Basic Science class. Today we'll be looking at the topic traits. When we say traits, what do we understand by that word trait? When we look at the members of our family, it is easy to see that some physical characteristics or traits are shared. Or let me ask like this: has anyone ever told you that you look just like one of your parents or grandparents? Some characteristics such as the shape of your hairline, or whether your hairlobes are attached or detached, or your skin color, or the shape of your nose, and so on, are what we call traits. That is, the characteristics that can be passed from parents to their offspring. That is what trait is all about. The features we see in the parents and we also see in their offspring are called traits or genes. So let's put down the definition of traits. A family trait or gene is a genetic likeness that is passed through parent genes to their children. It can also be defined as transmittable characteristics passed from parents to offspring and also from one generation to another. That is what trait is all about. So let's put this into writing. Trait, a genetic likeness that is passed through parent genes to their children, or transmittable characteristics passed from parents to their offspring and from one generation to another. What are the examples of traits that we can see in both the parents and also the same as their offspring? For example, skin color. Skin color is a very important trait that can be passed from parents to their offspring. You have people that have light skin that are inherited from their parents. You have people that have dark skin inherited from their parents. This is a very, very obvious example of traits in humans. We also have color. Color is another trait that is transmittable from the parents to the offspring. Height too is another trait that is passed down from the parents to their offspring. We have people that are short, which they inherit from their parents. We have children that are short, also inherited from their parents. So we can see that trait is all about passing down physical characteristics from parents to their offspring. We also have albinism. Albinism is another trait that is passed down from parents to their offspring. What is albinism? It's a condition in which external pigment fails to develop, or the condition where there is lack of melanin pigment in the layer of the skin epidermis. That is the skin, the layer of the skin. When you lack melanin, that gives the normal color we have. So that is what we call albinism. So it's another trait that can be passed from parents to their offspring. You have grandparents or parents that are albino. They can surely give birth to offsprings that are also albino. Another important trait that can be passed from parents to their offspring is color of hair. We have people with very dark hair. We have children with black hair that are inherited from their parents. We also have children with straight and long hair. We have children with red hair. They are all inherited from their parents. That is what we call traits. Another trait that can be passed down from parents to their offspring is blood group. You have a parent that is AA and AS, or AS and AS. They can give birth to an offspring that is also AS. So all these traits are physical features that can be passed down from parents to their offspring. That is what trait is all about. And we have two types of traits or genes. Trait is also known as genes. We have the dominant traits or genes. We have recessive traits. What do we understand by these two types of genes or two types of traits? When we are talking about dominant trait, this is a gene or trait that manifests physically in offspring. Like they are traits that we can see with our eyes on offspring, and they continue to appear in each generation. That is, when they start from a particular generation, it keeps going on and on like that. That is dominant gene or trait. They can be seen, they manifest physically, we can see them clearly in offspring, and they continue to appear from one generation to another. That is dominant trait. The other hand, recessive trait is actually present in living organisms but does not appear in offspring. They do not manifest in offspring. It is gene that is masked or covered by the dominant gene. This means dominant gene is stronger than recessive gene. Dominant gene masks up recessive gene, so we cannot see them physically in offspring, although they are present in living organisms, but we cannot see them physically. And this trait may not manifest in the first generation but suddenly appear in a successive generation. They might not appear in the first generation, but eventually, as we have successive generation, they can appear, e.g. albinism. When you give birth to an offspring, the first generation, you might not have an albino, but as time goes on, when the offspring give birth to another generation, suddenly albinism will appear, or another trait that you have not seen in the first generation will suddenly appear in another generation. That is recessive trait or gene. So dominant genes are stronger because you see them as early as possible. You can see them like physical. They are physical features that you can see in offspring. So the scientist Gregor Mendel work on family trait or gene, and it represents genes with letters. Represented gene with letters. So here he illustrates genes with letters. We have TT. Genes actually they appear in pairs. Genes appear in pairs. So the first gene or trait that we can have is TT. That is capital letter T twice. That is same homo. We call them homozygous. They are the same. We call them homozygous. We also have TT. That is the capital letter and the small heterozygous. And the third one is the small TT. They are the same, so we call them. So this is what the scientist Gregor Mendel used to explain traits for us. For example, when you have a man, a grown man, when you have a grown man with the dominant homozygous, we have a tall man. If a dominant homozygous tall man marries a homozygous short woman, that is TT. This is a tall man getting married to homozygous woman or homozygous short woman. The small TT is for short, while the TT, the capital TT, is for tall. So when a tall man gets married to a short woman, a homozygous short woman, they are going to produce their first generation. They may not produce any short children, but their offspring carrying the recessive trait of shortness may produce short children in their second or third generation. This explains recessive gene. That is, when these two people, when they get married, their first generation might not be short offspring, but when their offspring give birth to their own generation, they might have short offsprings. So let's match this together. So the first that we have here is TT, that is heterozygous offspring. The second offspring, they also have heterozygous offspring. So I have the capital letter and small letter T, that is heterozygous, and the T. So this is how the breeding goes. You match the first gene of the man, that is the capital letter T, with the first small letter T. Then you go again to the first T of the tall man, to the second T, small t, of the woman. Then you go again to the second capital letter T of the man, the tall man, to the first gene, small t, then the same second T with the last T, or with the second T of the woman. That's how you have heterozygous offspring. So here we have 4 heterozygous offspring. So from this illustration, you can say in the first fetal generation, all the offspring will be tall, that is heterozygous tall, that is capital letter T and small letter t. The gene of the man will dominate the recessive short trait of the woman. Though all the offsprings are heterozygous, they all carry recessive traits of shortness. When the parents give birth to tall children, this does not mean that these offspring do not have shortness in them. Do you understand? They do not. That does not mean they do not have the gene of shortness in them, but the tall gene dominates the recessive gene. Do you understand? It dominates the gene of the woman. That is why we have the heterozygous T. So in this generation, they will all be tall offspring, although there is still the presence of the short gene in the offspring. So I hope you understand this particular topic and you enjoy the class. If you have any question or there is something you do not understand about this particular topic we've discussed, make sure to drop that in the comment section. Let us know what you don't understand and what you want to understand better. I hope you enjoyed the class. See you in my next video. Bye bye.